logic and your cheese. Mr. Sensible has the subtleties.
I have progressively been making a bigger and bigger deal about common ground. Common ground is where two different parties can openly agree upon something. As I see it, the entire purpose of a debate is to persuade someone, be it an audience or an individual. The ideal closure of debate, which is very rarely, if ever, seen these days in formal debates, is where two parties shake hands, look each other in the eye and say, "Hey, I see what you were saying. I agree." There is no anger and resentment over anything. If anything, there's kind of a wonder and excitement about it. One party's saying, "Whoa, you just totally blew my mind. My eyes have been opened." And the other one's like, "Oh, you understand me. Hooray!" And they're all excited about it. It's something to be, there's rejoicing going on here. When this happens, even if someone is proven wrong about something, there is no winner or loser in the debate. It's a victory for everyone. That is the kind of victory I am after. That's why I like to say no one truly wins a debate until common ground has been established. Now, in order to get to this ideal destination, it's going to require some stepping stones. Some smaller pieces of common ground that we can build upon until we get there. With that being said, I had a great conversation with a globe earther by the name of Mr. Sensible the other day, and I just wanted to highlight some of the common ground that we were able to establish. So, keeping things as basic as possible, let's just start with the word science. How do you define science?
Right. Well, I'm going to describe it rather than define it. I'm going to describe it as an open and honest quest to find out the reasons behind why things are as they are through the use of evidence and using experiments to test and then replicate those tests to rule out the paths that are incorrect. Sorry, I know that's a bit woolly.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's your definition. I think when it comes directly from you, instead of being exactly written, it's a little bit more personal that way.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quest to learn, and actually, Kyle, and I can't remember the name, but it's a genuine story. Okay, I just can't remember the names. There was some great scientist. I think he was a physicist, describing something, doing some lecture, and his enemy, if you like, someone else who held a different view of how these things were. At the end of the lecture, he'd been persuaded. Okay, his life's work was shown to be wrong. Okay, do you know what he did? He went up to the guy who gave the lecture, crying, or with tears in his eyes, and thanked him for showing him what was actually correct, because he'd managed to provide enough evidence. So that was a true scientist. His whole life was, and his work and his the things he was trying to show turned out to be wrong, but he was happy because now he knew what was right. And
it's
that,
like he was able to make that connection. It's all about making connections with people, and whoever the presenter was in that instance sounds like he was an expert at making connections with people.
Well, he obviously had the right theory, had the right evidence to support that theory, and was enough to show the other guy that he couldn't possibly be right. Now, I mean, some people might get angry or storm out, because basically their understanding or belief, to use it in the sort of wider sense of the term, had been shown to be wrong. But no, he was happy to be shown to be shown that he was wrong, because now he knew what appeared to be right, and he could move on from there. So, yeah.
Sounds like they had great common ground.
Well, yeah, on that day they did anyway.
Yeah, or that established anyway. So, my general definition that I always go with is science is the systematic knowledge of the physical or material world gained through observation and experimentation, which I think sounds a lot like what you just barely said.
Yeah, I was going to say
Can we call that-
I
can we
don't
call
think
that common ground?
yeah, I don't think I disagree with that.
Perfect. That's really great common ground to have. Now, with that, I'm going to ask, I often hear people say that flat earthers are anti-science. Are you one of those people? If so, what does the phrase anti-science mean to you?
Well, I think, let's say this is your day one, okay? You step out of the house as an adult, it's day one, you've no idea what's outside. You look, I think, saying, do you know what? I think the world is flat. That is a totally reasonable and understandable first position to take. Okay, that the Earth looks flat, that you can't feel it moving, that the stars and the sun are wheeling around overhead. I think that's a totally understandable and honest first case position, because the evidence at face value would appear to support that. Now, if you stop then, you're not being scientific, because you should do tests to test it. You know, how could we test to see if the Earth is turning? How could we determine if the stars are rotating or we are rotating, and so on? And you devise tests, get the results of those tests, or make other observations, take measurements, and so on, and then see if your initial theory of the Earth is flat and the stars wheeling overhead still holds true. Now, with certain of those tests, they wouldn't be able to determine which way, because if you looked and watched the sun during the day, yeah, it's moved, but actually, has the sun moved or have we moved? You can't tell just with that, staring at the sun for a day. So you could just rest on your laurels and say, right, well, the sun moves, but that wouldn't be honest. So you'd need to devise more and better tests until you can rule one out, because you never rule one totally 100% in, and just science doesn't prove that the sun is moving, but science can prove that the Earth is not. Prove is a dangerous word, but you know what I mean. Can evidence that the Earth is not stationary. So if you can rule that out, then your new theory that the sun is moving so far holds true. So you could do yet further tests to see if you could show that is true, or if perhaps it's some sort of illusion or whatever. I don't know.
All right, so I think we've got some really great common ground to start off with there. We have the definition of science, and then we also have the definition of anti-science, because I really agree with the way you described that there, as in lying. Lying is anti-science. Though I think we both point to different people and making accusations as to who exactly is anti-science, but we'll not get into that right now. The other great common ground that was established was that the flat Earth is a valid hypothesis.
Yeah. Well, it's totally, anything is as valid as a hypothesis. I'm not taking the mickey, but a hypothesis could be that the Earth is flat and it's resting on turtles. That's a hypothesis. So you'd have to think of ways to test that hypothesis. Otherwise, it's just pulling an idea out of your butt and just going with it, which is not good. So you said flat Earth is anti-science. Some are not. Excuse me. Some are not. In the case of the experiment you, well, I was just going to say, in the case of that experiment that you ran, which I made a prediction for, you made a prediction. That was scientific to devise an experiment, to test it, to look at the evidence, and in your case, revise your position based on the evidence. That is scientific, absolutely. Then you have someone like Ranty Flat Earth, who was very much a flat earther, devised all sorts of experiments which, to his mind, did not disprove a flat Earth, or even, to his mind, seemed to disprove a globe, until he came across the Blackpool Tower photo. And for him, that was a defining moment when he could see that the evidence presented before him could not work on a flat Earth, but would work on a globe. So he changed his position, and it was such a killer for him, he gave up flat Earth. Again, so that is scientific. So, yeah, he's not a flat earther now, but he was a flat earther behaving in a scientific manner. But there are others who will just lie, and that is anti-scientific. So I'm not casting you amongst them. Certainly not with the experiment you did.
I really appreciate the fact that you're not making the hyper generalization of saying all flat earthers are exactly the same.
No, because they're not.
That is very admirable, because I talk to way too many people out there who just clump all flat earthers into one category and treat them all as if they were exactly the same. So the fact that you see that we're not is great.
Yeah, no, it is wrong to literally bunch everyone in together. I'd be honest and say that my honest opinion is that not all, but the vast majority of the flat earthers are not being honest. Not because they disagree, because Ranty disagreed, but he disagreed holding an honest position and was able to move. On this thing with the elevator and the scales or whatever it was, you held an honest position, you honestly ran the test, you looked at the evidence and you changed your position. And I know you did it before as well. This is not the first time, because do you remember that image of a sphere, a ball, and you thought that the curve should always, the hump of the curve should always be in the centre, and I explained and showed you some images, and you, I'm not sure if you actually tested it or if you just sort of said, actually, yeah, I see what you mean, but you revised your position. So that's good.
I've done that with a number of things. Just in my discussions with you, when we did the whole observing the whole mage footage, that actually caused me to go back and rewrite a whole bunch of my material.
Oh yes, you did, yeah. So I do enjoy having you on here, Kyle. Okay, I mean, yes, between flat earthers and the globe side, both sides make fun of each other, and that's fine. I do tease you. There's no spite there. The only person
I can sense that that we can. We're pretty respectful.
Yeah, and I don't. You know, I get teased about my lovely hairstyle, for instance, quite a lot. And again, that's fine. There's only one or maybe two people who I think are just downright, not being funny, disgusting. Well, one is Nathan Oakley. I'm happy to name him. Everyone thinks that, I pretty much think. I think he's a despicable person, the way he treats people. Whether he really believes in flat earth or not, it's just despicable, trying to make money by just being abusive to people. And the other one is Sleeping Warrior, because there's been a couple of things. There was the business of the disablest hate speech he aimed at myself, and I can't remember who, but about 3 or 4 other Globe people, to the extent that the police had to get involved. And then, of course, he then carried on and made comments against Conspiracy Cats, hinting that he felt that Conspiracy Cats was a pedophile, which I think is disgusting. You attack Conspiracy Cat's opinions, try and debunk his evidence, that's fine. Call him silly names, that's fine. He's a big boy, he can take it. But that was just disgusting, absolutely disgusting. So those two people, I think, are disgusting, definitely. But most of the rest... There's
definitely a light side and a dark side of Persuasion. And when you get into like the bully tactics, that's the dark side.
The dark side.
So we want to stay away from want to stay away from the dark side. Yeah, I'm all about enriching relationships. When people start throwing rocks at each other and treating them like garbage, that just encourages them to put up walls, and it's hard to persuade people that way. Oh, no! You're attacking me! I've got to defend myself! And throwing rocks is a form of persuasion, but that's like bullying and terrorism, and we want to stay away from the dark side. We want to take down walls by building positive relationships with people and enriching those relationships. That's when we can build these bridges, these two-way bridges of positive communication with each other. And that's one of the things I really love about my relationship here with Mr. Sensible, is I feel like we have that.
Well, yeah, it's good to talk. And I mean, from my point of view, over time, maybe it's the same for you the other way around, but from my point of view, over time, I'd like to, for us to cover more and more things. And I hope to be able to evidence and persuade you, and maybe at one point in the future you turn around and say, do you know what, actually, Mr. S, I now think it's a globe. That would be the ideal for me. I'm sure that for you it might be the other way around. That's fine.
Yeah, but yeah, we can't get there without having those blocks of common ground to build upon. And unless we have that, we're just spinning our wheels, getting nowhere again.
But I'm more than willing to talk openly with people. I'll have a bit of fun as well, but talk openly and give people respect. And of course, I'd like it back the other way as well, and I'm sure you do as well. Why would you come on a channel just to be abused? You know, yeah. So I've had some others on here. I mean, there's a guy, Gary Wybenga. He's not really someone I've likely to debate, but he was very much been the butt of a lot of jokes, and he very much had a trolling sort of attitude on the channel. But we sort of come to an understanding. He's welcome to the channel. He's made posts which I and 99.99% of other people here disagree with, but we've to use your terminology, we found a common ground where he can exist here on the channel, express his views, and we're happy to have him here. And he has trusted me enough to come on to voice, I think twice, briefly, but twice. The same with Multi Tom Tom. He's come on once, and that's a big thing because I'm not aware of him going on anyone else's channel. So I found that very gratifying that he felt maybe they were a bit nervous about would I suddenly try a gotcha on them, but I found it gratifying that they trusted me enough to come on here. But I'm happy chatting, but did you have some specific questions about flat or globe then?
Well, this is all preliminary work, and I've just been bringing up some questions about some things I addressed in my very first lesson 1. And so my next question here is about the word evidence. How do you define evidence? I'm wondering if that's common ground for us or if we define that differently, because a lot of people out there state that flat earthers have no evidence. And so I'm like, well, that really depends on how you define evidence.
Yeah, well, evidence could be observations, visual observations, although then visual observations are subject to distortion, be that refraction or if they're photographs, there's processing. Other measurements, and measurements could be as simple as using a ruler or a set of scales. But I mean, there's plenty of other means of measuring things. Those are all items of evidence. I know that you're a religious person, and just so that you're aware, because I'm not sure if I've expressed it to you, I'm not a religious person, but I have no problem with people having religions, as long as they're not religions, they're not taking their religion and trying to shove it down your throat. I have no problem at all with you being religious. But what I do not regard as evidence is someone saying, well, this is the case because it says so in the Bible or the Torah or whatever.
It's an appeal to an authority kind of statement, but you don't regard the Bible as an authority, so it kind of loses all power with you. I get that.
The thing is, I don't want to try and talk about or try and debunk any particular thing, but let's just take, just for the sake of argument, Noah's Ark, okay?
Okay.
So if someone says, well, Noah had an ark because it says so in the Bible, that's not enough. That's not evidence. That is
I agree.
A claim. But one evidence could be, is it possible to build a wooden boat of that size? And all the evidence that I've seen shows that it isn't, because the boat of that sort of length would bend and flex, and wood would then separate, and you get leaking, and it would basically break up. So that could be, if you actually could build a boat of that size, that could be some evidence for it, saying, look, we built a boat that big, and so it's possible.
Okay.
So the claim saying Noah built a boat this long is not evidence. That's a hypothesis, if you like, but then you'd have to demonstrate it with an experiment.
So the way I have evidence defined is just indication or sign of something. It's grounds to believe in something. And so what you're saying here with Noah's Ark is you don't see any indications or signs work for you because you don't see the Bible as an indication of anything actually happening. It's just another book.
No, because if
I were to read Grimm's fairy tales or something like that, I wouldn't see this Little Red Riding Hood or something. I'm trying to think of a little more specific.
It was Brer Rabbit, wasn't when I can't remember. It's years since I read it.
There's a lot of interesting things that just sound impossible, like being able to cut someone out of someone's stomach and they're alive.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I had a book here that said the moon is made of cheese, okay, that's a hypothesis. It could be, but that's not evidence. That would be a claim, or as I said, at best, some sort of hypothesis. You then need to claim, you then need to test it. However that is, whether it's visiting it or taking some readings that would show that the material it was made of, or so on. So I would say that the Bible is not evidence of anything.
It's not really an observation, right?
No, it's not. You could regard it as a hypothesis. You could say, look, I've got this book called the Bible, and I think it might be right. So what it says, about Noah, creation, and all these things could be true. Okay, and that's fine. But I would not say you could say that it's evidence, because you need to repeat it. Sorry?
I was going to say, it's something a little bit different when you're talking to someone who has that whole, the Bible is it kind of a mentality where they see that as absolute truth and the all-out authority on everything. Does that make sense? And so if you're talking to someone who believes that, then you could bring up an appeal to an authority because they view that as an authority. That's kind of an observation to them. But for you, you don't view the Bible as an authority, so that's like, okay, so what? That's not an observation of anything other than it's written down in a book. And there's a million books out there
and that's from whichever side. Just having it saying in a book, it's a globe. That's not enough. That although that might be describing the results of an experiment which show it's a globe. But if I just had a book that said, oh, the Earth is a globe, that's not evidence. That would be a claim that requires substantiation. But no, this isn't a debate or an argument about religion tonight anyway.
I don't say the Bible proves the Earth is flat. I say that the Earth is flat ends up proving the Bible in the instances that describe the Earth is flat in the Bible. Does that make sense? One is dependent upon the other, not the other way around.
Okay.
All right. So I define evidence as a sign or indication of something. It's grounds to believe in something. This girl's face was looking really flush, and that was evidence that she had a fever. Can we find common ground in this definition?
I don't think we wildly disagree. For instance, if you said photographs are evidence, then it's also then going to depend on it's also then going to depend, has that photograph been taken properly? Has the measurement been taken properly that's produced that result? So that has to come into consideration as well.
Yeah. And so evidence doesn't necessarily hardcore prove something to be true. It's just kind of an indication or a sign.
That's right. This
is grounds for investigation.
Yeah, the evidence either supports, i.e., it can either directly support something. It can be evidence that doesn't clash with something. If you said the sun is hot, and I said, I've taken a temperature. Actually, I'm waffling a bit. What I'm saying is, some evidence may not support a position, but as long as it's not running counter to it, it's neutral. So it doesn't really matter. The evidence you really want is the evidence that attacks your position.
Grounds to believe in something. But the grounds for believing that this is the case or is not the case. It can go both ways.
But you evidence will support, but you need to test evidence that could possibly knock your theory. So if you have your hypothesis, there's no point there's no point in having a hypothesis that the sun is hot and running a test by using a microphone to listen to it, because that's not going to tell you the temperature that you're receiving from the sun. So it's got to be appropriate evidence, but what you want to do is, okay, well, how can we test to see if the sun is actually cold? Because if we run that test that could possibly show if it's cold, and it comes out and says it's cold, well, that's knocked your theory that the sun is hot. So that's good evidence. So you'd have to revise your theory under those circumstances. This is interesting stuff.
That's a topic that people get into with the moon. Is the moonlight warm or cold?
I know.
There's a whole other topic. That's a whole other can of worms.
Isn't it just?
So I just wanted to, that was my other thing. Was my very last question was, how much evidence do you need in order to form a hypothesis? And overall, I think you kind of already addressed this in the very beginning. Huh?
None at all.
No evidence to form a hypothesis.
Not to form a hypothesis. My hypothesis could be that Kyle Adams is an artificial life form produced in a factory and delivered by Amazon. That could be my hypothesis, and that's valid as a hypothesis. Then we need to think of tests. Well, how could we do it? We could try taking him to pieces. We can see what happens. Leave him running for a week. Will he run flat if we don't plug him in? Those could be ways of testing if you're an artificial life form. But the hypothesis is basically just some idea that you want to find out the answer to. So my hypothesis is that you're a robot. Okay? That's fine. That's a valid hypothesis. So let's test it. Okay? So you design experiments to test it. Sorry?
I said that's the right kind of attitude. That's the whole purpose. There's no point in having a hypothesis unless it's going to take you somewhere.
That's right. So we've got that hypothesis. We think of ways. How could we show that Kyle is not a robot? Well, one thing is we could pinprick his thumb and see if he bleeds, because robots don't bleed. Pinprick your thumb, blood comes out. Well, that's not looking good for Kyle being a robot. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's yeah, cool. Okay, well, let's get a couple. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, so based on everything you told me today, can't find a single thing that you disagree with in my very first lesson 1. You've checked off everything, so
okay,
which is great. It's a significant amount of common ground, and I really aim to try and make those videos as agreeable as possible. And so,
okay, well, from my point of view, I would like us to, as I said, to chat in the background off stream, to see if we can organise some sort of debate. If it doesn't work out between us for whatever reason, no hard feelings, no blame or anything like that. Either way, we'll see what happens.
All right, let's do it. I look forward to that.
It's nice chatting with you. I get on with you. I like you as a guy, I have no problems at all. Obviously, we disagree about the shape of the Earth.
It's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Because I'm getting there. I'm going to have you convinced. I just don't know how long it will take.
Well, like I said, it's all about building upon that common ground, and common ground works both ways. I can use it just as well as you can use it, because that's something we both agree upon.
Yeah.
That's how you build that two-way bridge of communication.
Well, fingers crossed, everyone. Myself and Kyle we'll try and chat and see if we can come up with something to debate about a little more formally, where we actually provide evidence, perhaps something a bit more structured. Or maybe not, and that's fine too. But I hope so.
That's one thing I really want you to try and ask me is, I want you to come at me and try to find as much common ground as you can that you can use to your own advantage to try and persuade me. And I think that would be a very interesting interesting approach to take.
Okay, and I'm not going to say anything about it yet, but I've actually thought of something. Okay. Okay, cool. So thanks very much, Kyle.
All right. Well, I greatly look forward to this upcoming debate whenever it will be. Thank you all for watching.
Mr. Sensible, bring me some cheese and get me only